An information session held on the 23rd of May 2018. My name is Michael Craighead, the Administration and Corporate Projects Manager. First of all, I'd like to mention that we have a disclaimer. This information session is being held to further inform the Frankston community. It should be noted that Council officers have not seen the final version of the Local Government Bill, which was earlier introduced to Parliament today. Local Government Act Review project team comprising staff from Local Government Victoria's Governance, Legislation and Integrity Unit is the authority on the draft bill. The key source of information about the draft bill is online hub at yourcouncilyourcommunity.vic.gov.au. Background. In December 2017, the Minister for Local Government released the exposure draft of the Local Government Bill 2018. The draft bill and explanatory material can be viewed online at yourcouncilyourcommunity.vic.gov.au. The draft bill represents a significant shift from providing detail in legislation to providing guidance with a view to increasing the autonomy of councils. Where detail is required, this is to be supplied through best practice guidelines and, where necessary, regulations. Consultation and community engagement. Local Government Victoria conducted extensive engagement with councils, ratepayers, the wider community and specific stakeholders. Stage 1 of the consultation was Reform Ideas, release of discussion paper, Ideas for Reform, September 2015. Stage 2, Policy Directions, release of directions paper seeking comments on proposed reform, June 2016. Stage 3, Implementation Challenges, targeted to identify issues with specific reforms. And Stage 4, Exposure Draft Bill released on the 12th of December, submissions were invited with a view to identifying any necessary final adjustments. 10 out of 10 the major reforms. The new draft bill contains dozens of reforms, but the following 10 major changes provide a flavour for how local government in Victoria will be strengthened. 1. Mayors will provide greater leadership to councils by adopting more extensive responsibilities. 2. Consistency of council representative structures will be improved. 3. We will increase participation, formal voting and fairness in council elections. 4. Councils will undertake deliberative community engagement processes before adopting a 4-year council plan and 4-year budget. 5. Councils will integrate strategic planning and reporting and adopt a long-term approach. 6. The Act will strengthen the Minister's powers to deal with individual councillors who are contributing to or causing serious governance failures at a council. 7. All councils will have a CEO employment and remuneration policy and an independent advisory requirement. 8. Councils will have greater autonomy with prescriptive decision-making process replaced by a requirement to comply with high-level principles requiring transparency, accountability and sound financial management. 9. The Act reinvigorates a council's capacity to innovate and collaborate with other councils, other government agencies and the private sector. And 10. The new Act will establish a single method for valuing land and clarifying exemptions from rates. Finding your way. Structure of this draft bill. The Exposure Draft Local Government Bill has 11 parts, which are as follows. 1. Preliminary, contains the definitions. 2. Councils, working parts to operate, roles and powers, overarching governance principles, constitution, mayor and councillors, entitlements, CEOs and council staff. 3. Decision making, policy, principles, community engagement, meeting procedures, governance rules, local laws, guidelines and directions. 4. Planning and financial management, plan and budget, strategic planning, community vision, council plan, financial and asset plans, budget process, reporting, financial management. 5. Rates and charges, revenue, declaration, special purpose charges, payment and recovery, environmental upgrades, fair go rates. 6. Council operations, delivery, service performance, procurement, beneficial enterprises, land. 7. Council integrity, defining and managing conduct, probity offences, councillor conduct framework, conflict of interest. 8. Ministerial oversight, authority of minister to intervene, restructuring councils, monitors, municipal inspector, commissions of inquiry, Suspensions, temporary administration. 9. Electoral provisions, elections. Voter franchise, candidates conducting elections, electoral offences, campaign donations. 10. General provisions, other matters, regulations. 11. Transitional and consequential. Implementing the new Act, commencement of provisions, changes to other acts. Key provisions in the draft bill. Overall shift away from prescription towards the concept of good governance, with increased discretion for councils to determine their own policies and processes. Policies to be developed: council expense policy, CEO employment and remuneration policy, community engagement policy, public transparency policy, governance rules and election period policy, complaints policy, procurement policy, councillor gift policy. It's interesting to note that this council currently has in place most of those policies, although most of them will need to be upgraded. If the bill is passed, existing council policies will be revised to ensure compliance, and with any new legislative requirements then presented back to council for formal consideration and adoption. Confidential information. New and very detailed definition in Clause 3 no longer relies on designation by the CEO or a resolution of council. New conflict of interest provisions, material conflict of interest and general conflict of interest. Provisions in the draft bill regarding integrity and councillor conduct are largely unchanged. There is no significant changes to the offences, the principles of councillor conduct or the councillor conduct panel process. Expansion of ministerial oversight. Part 8, Division 6 provides for suspension of a council on the recommendation of the minister if satisfied on reasonable grounds that the council has caused or contributed to the creation of a serious risk to the health and safety of a councillor or member of council staff, or a failure by the council to provide good governance, or a failure by the council to comply with a governance direction. And if the councillor is not suspended, there is an unreasonable risk that the serious risk or failure will continue. Current status of the bill. The opportunity to provide input to the draft bill finished with the close of submissions on the 16th of March 2018. 190 submissions were received in response to the exposure draft. These can be viewed on the Your Council, Your Community website. The final bill was introduced into Parliament today, and the first provisions are intended to come into effect mid-2018 on a staged basis, with the last of the provisions to commence operation for the next council elections. At this stage, the final bill has not been released. Next steps. Likely next steps in the process will include amending the draft bill to address any significant issues that may have been raised in the submissions process, seeking approval of the bill at Cabinet, introducing the bill into Parliament for discussion and debate, which may result in House amendments. Note that the caretaker period is expected to commence with the expiry of the Legislative Assembly at 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 30th October 2018, based on election date of 24th of November 2018, or sooner if an early election is called. Next steps, stay tuned to the State Government's website, yourcouncil.yourcommunity.vic.gov.au, as the primary source of information about the local government bill. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate your time tonight.